Oh, hello everyone. So we'll begin now. Thank you so much for taking out the time and joining today's webinar. So in today's webinar, we will be talking about our onboarding APIs and how you can use them to make distinct processes and to smoothen your onboarding process. So let me quickly introduce the speakers for today. So uh, for today's speakers, I'm myself Pratiksha Shetty. I am the marketing manager at Arya.ai. Along with me, we have Akash Kumar, who is a data scientist. So, Akash would be giving you a quick overview of the onboarding APIs and also helping you with any questions that you may have regarding the APIs. So, let me quickly give you an introduction about our company. So, talking about our company, we are Arya.ai. We have an AI API platform where we offer more than 70 plus ready to use API for automation of various operational processes. So, our journey started in 2013 by Dikshit and Vinay Kumar. So, we are one of the first AI companies to pioneer in deep learning based technologies. So we have automated key processes for BFSI industries over the years. So our API platform offers APIs for various processes like onboarding, healthcare, financial services, etc. So as of now, we have a presence in more than 16 plus countries globally. So in today's webinar, we would be focusing majorly on all our onboarding APIs, and we would be giving you a walkthrough, and you'll also be, getting a hands-on demonstration on how these APIs work and how you can use them in your day-to-day operations. So yeah, I think I'll hand it over to Akash now, who will help you understand these APIs better. So over to you, Akash.
Thanks, Pratiksha, for that introduction. Um, Hi, everyone. I'm Akash. I work in Arya.ai as a data scientist. Since we already have a good idea of what Arya APIs does and what our agenda for today is with regards to this webinar, I'll do is I'll quickly walk you through our APIs platform so that everyone is on the same page and we have a good idea as to how to use these APIs. And what I'll also do is I'll quickly show you how you can integrate these APIs into your backend servers using whatever programming language you want. So I'll be explaining it via Python. So I'll just quickly share my screen and I'll show you how to access our platform. Hold on. Pratiksha, is my screen visible?
Yes, it's visible.
Okay, perfect. Um, yeah, cool. So if you log on to api.arya.ai, this is what you see. We have a wide variety of APIs that we offer across the globe. See, so since I am based out of India, my geolocation is by default set to India. But if you're in Southeast Asia, Middle East, or Africa or someplace, it will by default be set to that place. But you're not restricted to APIs of that region. You can check out APIs across the globe, and yeah, you can go through our marketplace and see different categories as to what APIs we offer. For example, there's predictive analysis, there's onboarding, which we'll go through today. There's digitization. There are a wide variety of APIs pertaining to computer vision and NLP as well. And we have a brand new health API as well, which you can check out, which will tell you your vitals just by scanning your face. But our agenda for today is onboarding. So I'll quickly show you what our marketplace offers. Let's say you want to check out onboarding, okay? And you want to check out this API called passive face liveness detection. What you can do is you can click on that API. You can read through about what that API does. And now what happens is when you're a new user who logs on to our API marketplace, you will have a subscribe button on here. I've already subscribed to this API. That's why it's not visible right now. But once you subscribe to it, you will be assigned a unique API token, which looks something like this. It is unique to you and your API. This is the endpoint for the API if you want to use it in your backend services. And yeah, if you want, you can try out the API as well. So once you subscribe to the API, you'll be given free credits as well, so that you can test out as many times to be sure if you want to use that API in the long run as well. So what this API does is we have samples as well, right? It tells you whether the person sitting in front of the camera is an actual person and not a photo of the individual sitting in front of the camera. Like, for example, I can just open a photo of myself and place it in front of the camera using my phone. That would be a spoof image. But me sitting right now, that's a real image. So it'll detect basically that. I'll go through this API in detail once I've explained what the onboarding process generally looks like. But this is essentially it. This is what our API platform offers for one API. There's also one thing I want to show you. This is the documentation wherein you have all the request parameters, the header parameters. You also have the response that you'll get once you ping our servers, and we have all the details necessary for you to use these in your backend servers as well, right? Another thing that's very important is the dashboard. So once you've subscribed to a lot of APIs, once you've tested a lot of APIs, what happens is you can see this in our dashboard that you have the recent pings here. So 4 out of these 4 APIs were successfully pinged. Then there was a failure because of certain issue. These are my total pings for the month, successful pings, failed pings. You have all the data in this dashboard, right? You have a list of subscriptions that you have subscribed to on our platform. You can also get in touch with our support and so on and so forth. So you can feel free to explore this marketplace, feel free to explore this dashboard, feel free to test out all these APIs because you will be given free credits, make full use of it. And then maybe you can start an engagement, right? So when it comes to onboarding, I'll give you a brief idea as to how you can use the APIs in our marketplace to sort of onboard your customers onto your services. So generally, what happens in an onboarding procedure is essentially, I'll show you one sec. Yeah. So once the onboarding process starts, there is something known as a liveness check that's happening. What that liveness check does is, like I mentioned, it'll tell whether there's a actual person sitting in front of the webcam, or if there's some video of the person playing, or there's something else that's happening that leads to fraudulent activities. So that's what passive face liveness does. And what's interesting about this API is that the user sitting in front of the camera does not have to do anything. This all happens behind the scenes, and these passive face liveness checks can be done very frequently to verify if there are no frauds happening with regards to liveness. Right, so that's something that takes place as soon as the onboarding process starts and throughout the process, if necessary. Then what we do is whenever there's an onboarding process going on, you upload a document, right? Your national ID card, for instance. So if you're someone who's based out of India, you put in your Aadhaar card or PAN card. If you're someone who is, let's say, in Southeast Asia, you would, let's say if you're based out of Singapore, you put in your Singapore NRIC ID. If you're someone who's based in Indonesia, you put in Indonesia KTP ID. If you're someone based out of Malaysia, you put your MyCAD ID, right? If you're someone in Africa, you put your RSA ID, right? South Africa's ID, and so on and so forth. Our extraction APIs are not limited to these countries because our models are extremely efficient in extracting extracting the fields from the ID cards. If there are any additional customizations required, we'll just require a few samples and we'll build out a custom solution for you as well, right? That being said, what happens is when you upload an image, let's say you put in your Indonesia KTP ID onto the onboarding server, what happens is it'll first do another check called document tampering detection. This is a brand new API which basically tells you whether the document uploaded is edited, photoshopped, or tampered with in any way or not, right? For instance, I'll show you an example. So this is an Indian PAN card, right? And this is a proper PAN card. It doesn't look edited in any way, and it says that it's an authentic card. But here, if you see, this clearly looks edited, and it tells you that this is tampered with, and it's severely tampered with, right? So that's essentially what tampering does. What happens after these two checks, which is liveness and your document tampering checks are done, happens is extraction takes place. Right? So like I mentioned, you put in your Indonesia KTP ID and all the details are extracted from the ID card and returned to you as a JSON or in any format that you require. That is part 3. So first, liveness check. then a document tampering check, then extraction of the ID. And the final fourth step in this basic flow of onboarding is face verification. What exactly is face verification? Face verification is basically the ID card in your photo is extracted and is matched with the picture of the person sitting in front of the camera during onboarding, and you get a score as to whether it's matched by 90%, 80%, 70% to see if the person sitting is the same person whose ID card is being uploaded. So it's a very foolproof end-to-end process that you can integrate into your systems to onboard your customers, right? That being said, that's a basic flow of how an onboarding procedure can look like. But it's not restricted to this. It can be customized based on your requirement as well, right? So what I'll do is I'll quickly show you each of these APIs that I spoke about right now and show you how it works. So let's take passive phase liveness for instance. We just try out the API. Like I said, this is an actual picture of someone who's sitting in front of the camera. So it's definitely real. The confidence score for the same is 89%, and it says that there's 11% chance this could be spoof. So it's mostly real, right? And this clearly looks like a picture of someone placing this picture on a phone, right? So it says that it's 100% a spoof image, and in such scenarios, your aliveness API will detect that there's some sort of fraudulent activity going on. I'll show you this with a picture of me, right? So this is a picture of me in front of the camera. It's a real picture, so it shouldn't ideally be detected as spoof. Let's and if and as you see, it says it's 100% confident that this is a real image. Now I have the same picture, but it's a picture of the picture on my phone, right? I'll show you that picture quickly. Yeah, as you can see, this is clearly not a real picture. This is a picture of me holding my picture on my phone, and it says that it's 100% confident that this is a spoof image, right? So this is essentially what the liveness check is doing, and it almost accurately determines whether the person sitting in front of the camera is real or not. Right. That being said, we move on to our next check, which is a document tampering detection check, right? Let's just try out the API real quick. Like I showed, this image, it says is 100% authentic, and this image is fake. What I'll do is, so I'm someone who's based out of India, and I've been in India for almost all my life. There's no way I have an Indonesia KTP ID of me because I've never been to Indonesia, right? So naturally, I won't have one. So I've created an Indonesia ID of myself. Like the details are all fake, but it has a picture of me. Let's see if it determines if the ID is tampered with or not. As you can see, this is clearly a fake ID, and this is not my name. But it clearly shows that this document is tampered with, and the severity of this is very high, right? So this is essentially, these are your two checks, which is liveness check and document tampering check. What we'll do next is we'll actually go ahead and extract some details out of the KTP ID, right? Uh, So we have a few samples here for KTP ID, and if you look at this, these are all in Indonesian language, and all these details are extracted almost perfectly, right? You can also get these results as in JSON format. It look something like this, right? Yeah, I'll also show you another example with, let's say, a Singapore NRIC ID, right? This is a Singapore NRIC ID. So this has name, it has race, date of birth, sex, country, and place of birth, and it has all these details extracted almost perfectly. So we have these extraction services across a lot of countries and a lot of different kinds of ID cards across the globe. So feel free to explore our marketplace to see what works for you, and you can try the API using your free credits. So that's the third step of your onboarding process. Which, so the first one was liveness, then there was this document tampering check, then there was this extraction. The final step is face verification. What happens in face verification is essentially it'll match. So I'll show you the sample here. So let's say we take Sushant's ID here, and it'll extract the photo from here. It'll also extract the photo from his PAN card and see if it matches or not. This is just for the sake of an example. What I'll do is I'll also show it to you using my face, right? So let's just take the KTP ID I created for myself, which is this. Let me just quickly open my camera, because in an onboarding process, it will be actually this image that's been compared to the image in the ID card, right? So this is me in front of the camera. Let me just quickly submit. And it says faces matched, and my score is 90%. So this is basically a very efficient way of how you can onboard your customers, an end-to-end process, from seeing whether there are any fraudulent activities going on, to extracting the ID cards, information in the ID cards, and then finally verifying the face, right? But this is all in the platform right now, and you can't expect all your customers to come to the platform and do this one by one. So we also provide something known as your API token and endpoints. And so what you can do is you can use these in your backend servers to ping our API using code, right? So this is the API token for the Singapore NRIC API. This is the endpoint for the Singapore NRIC API. And these are all the languages you can use these endpoints and tokens in to run in your backend services. There's Curl, there's Java, there's Ruby, there's Objective-C, there's Node.js, C Sharp, PHP, and Python. For the sake of simplicity, and since we're comfortable in Python for now, I'll show you how you can use this via Python as well. But there are three things that you need to remember before I show you that there are three parameters. There's the header parameter, which has your token. There is the body parameters or the request parameters that has this, and it will be different for different APIs. So you need to make sure that you read the documentation before you create your API. So in this case, it has a request ID, which is a unique request ID you can pass in case you want to check the logs for a specific request posted by one of your customers during onboarding. Then there's dog base64, which is essentially the base64 string of the image of the ID card. Right? So these are the two parameters you need to post into our endpoint using your token. And then if everything runs successfully and everything goes as per plan, you will get something known as the response JSON, which is this. You'll get the request ID back. You'll get the success flag, which essentially tells you whether the process ran successfully or no. So if it ran successfully, it will give true. Otherwise, it will give false. If it's false, then error message is an empty string. If the success is true, then the error message will tell you why it failed, right? Doc type will be image, PDF, or whatever input document you fed in. Extraction will tell you the necessary details. So for Singapore NRIC ID, we saw it extracts the name, sex, country of birth, and so on and so forth. So all of that will be fed in another JSON within this extraction feed. Then document type is again a dictionary, and then finally so this is essentially your response string, right? Now what I'll do is I'll quickly show you how you can integrate this into your backend servers using a very simple Python function. You're not restricted to using that function. You can do additional modifications on that function, additional post processing on that function, but I'll show you a basic workflow as to how you can integrate this, and then any additional modifications can be done later on. So I'll just quickly, I've made this customer onboarding notebook for you for simplicity purposes. I'll show you how you can run this via Python, right? So first, what you do is you import all the very basic libraries for image processing and managing your directories in your local machine. Then what you need to do is you need to set your environment variables. Now, what are these environment variables? These environment variables will have your tokens, right? For NRIC, you'll have a token. For MyCAD, you'll have a token. Right now, these are empty strings because you'll be putting in your token. I have my token already put in here. So I'll quickly run that. Once you have fed in all your tokens, you can just click enter and run it straight away. Now that your environment variables are set, we'll quickly go into how we can use these APIs via code. First, before that, we'll quickly define a very small function that takes in an input image, which is, let's say, the image of myself, image of my ID card, or any other image, and it returns the base64 string of that same image, right? So you can just run this function to get the base64 string. Now, let's get on to our first API that we'll build. I've defined this function called liveness application because our first step is liveness API, right? So three things that I asked everyone to remember is headers, request parameters and response parameters, right? So you define a headers first, which is content type application slash JSON, and the token will be your token for your liveness API, right? Which is very unique to every single individual that uses our API. Then you need to define your request parameters, which is the REQID and docbase64. If you want to reconfirm, we'll just quickly go to api.aria.ai. We'll go to passive phase liveness detection. We go to documentation. We see what the endpoint is. That is the same endpoint that we're putting here. We see what our token is. Token will be fed in here initially. Then we'll see what input parameters are required, which is REQID and dogbase64. So REQID is be setting as one. Before just for explaining purposes, you can put in a very unique request so that it's easier for you to check the logs later on. And dog base64 is basically the base64 string of the picture of myself in front of the camera, right? So we've set in our request parameters all perfectly. Now what we'll do is we'll feed these request parameters into the endpoint using your token. And what if everything runs successfully, what you'll get is something that looks like this, right? You get your request ID, success, flag, error message, doc type, and doc JSON. Doc JSON basically contains whether the image is real or spoof, right? So you can easily access that JSON through here, through this command. And then any sort of additional post processing you would want to do on the result that you've generated can be done by you, because it is very specific from customer to customer, company to company. So I'm not going to do any post processing in this example, but you can feel free to do anything moving forward. All I did was I'm just going to create a new Python dictionary and I'm going to return it here. So it'll look something like this. It'll say real, the score for the match percentage, and spoof score for the match percentage. Cool. Similarly, for document tampering detection, the same thing. You define your headers, you define your request parameters, you post them, and you get the response. This is the same procedure you need to apply for every API that you use. You just have to make sure that the headers are correct, the request parameters are correct, and you can easily verify them through our website documentation. Then again, for extraction services, we've built all these functions, and then we've built a simple function to take in a choice as input choice for the ID card you're going to put in. Let's say you put in one of NRIC, MyCAD, or KTP ID, and then you put in the path to the image of that ID itself, and it'll simply extract those details for you and give you a result. Right. Finally, we've made all these little different kinds of functions for calling these APIs. What we'll do is we'll amalgamate all of them and we'll create one function so that you can just feed in the image of this of yourself in front of the camera, the choice of ID card, and the picture of the ID card. What I missed out on was this face verify application, which essentially extracts the face from the ID card and compares it with your face in front of the camera. Same procedure again: headers, request, and response, right? Cool. So what I did was I ran the liveness check first. I ran the document tampering next to check if the documents are tampered with or no. Then I ran the extraction process here, which extracts the details from the ID cards. And then finally, I did the face verification using the ID card and my face, right? So all you have to do is you have to call this function, and the entire KYC onboarding process will be executed using one function, right? Yeah. So what I did was I took an image of me, which is this image that I showed earlier, and I'm going to compare it with the fake ATP ID that I created, which is this, right? So what I'll do is I'll quickly show you how this will run. Yeah. This might take a couple of minutes because Google Colab takes a while to set up, but sure, I'll show you what. So ideally, your passive face liveness API should give that this is a real photo or a real person sitting in front of the camera. It should then tell you that the KTP ID has been tampered with and the severity is high. It should also tell you, give you all the extraction results. So what you can additionally do is after the tampering response says that this is severe, like it says it is tampered with, what you can do is additional I'm giving you an example for post processing. You can do if doc tamp is tampered is true, then do something. Let's say ask customer to upload a new image, or let's say verify manually, right? You can, it's very subjective from company to company what the company would want to do if the documents found are being tampered with, but this is something you can do. This is just for the sake of an example. We're not going to do something like that right now. So as you can see, it says that my face is real, so this is a real person sitting in front of the camera. Then it says that the KTP ID has been tampered with severely. It also tells me the extraction details here. All the details are given to you as a JSON. And finally, it tells me the match percentage is 90%. And there might be a 10% chance or 9% chance that this might not be the same person. But essentially, you can set whatever threshold you want. You can set the threshold to be 90%. And if the match percentage is above 90, then yes, the person is the same person as in the ID card. This is essentially it, what I wanted to show you as to how. So let's just quickly recap, right? I showed you how you can access our APIs platform. I showed you how you can test it out using your free credits. I showed you how you can use our documentation to see how you can run this in your backend services. And I showed you how you can integrate all of that within your backend service using Python. This is a very basic example. You can do additional modifications on top of this, but this is essentially what I wanted to show you today. Yeah, so if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the Q&A box and I'll be happy to answer. Otherwise, over to you, Pratiksha.
Thank you, Akash. So I think we don't have any questions as of now. We can just wait for a few minutes and see if we get any.
Sure, sure.
Uh, we don't have any questions, so I think we'll end the webinar here. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining today's webinar and for taking out the time. If you have any questions, you can reach out to us at hello@aria.ai. We also have an open platform, so you can explore all the APIs that we discussed and you can try it yourself. So feel free to reach out to us if you face any problems or if you want any help from our side. Thank you so much once again.
Thank you.